In those circumstances, it's difficult to accept that vigilant members of the ANC would not have been aware, firstly, of the fact that Bosasa was helping the African National Congress through donations and benefits, and secondly, that the company involved, Bosasa, was the recipient of large contracts under dubious circumstances from government. That being so, how could it happen? And the facts are there. How could it happen? And that's the second question, broad question that we ask, that the party continued to receive benefits from and be financed by Bosasa.
I think it's a valid question, a very, very valid question. And one should have been aware at an earlier stage about all this. I went to the election center, which Bosasa helped to finance during the election campaign. And even then, it never really, I must be honest, occurred to me, firstly, that they were bankrolling or they were financing in full that whole center on behalf of the ANC. The Treasurer General, as well as colleagues or comrades who ran the elections, knew, and I must say, it never really fully occurred to me. So, with hindsight, and as they say, the hindsight is an exact science, one would say we should have been more alert, particularly to those reports that had emerged a lot earlier, because during the course of all this, I mean, there was almost like a 9-year, 10-year period after they had occurred, according to my own recollection. So there had been a lapse. Ordinarily, as I think I said in my evidence, my opening statement, we would not knowingly and intentionally accept donations from companies or donors with who had been involved in criminal activity and all that. So that should be regarded as a major lapse on our part, particularly that proven that they had obtained their contracts unlawfully.
That is viewed at hindsight, but looking at what was happening at the time, I'm not sure that hindsight is an accounting for what happened. It's an explanation. One can shut the door on it, and one can resolve not to do so in future. And that's been the trend of the evidence thus far, and I'm going to deal with that issue in due course.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to avoid the conclusion on the facts that in the circumstances, the ANC received donations from Bosasa and Bosasa officials, board members, leaders in Bosasa, in circumstances which were such that required a proper investigation, and that the principle that it would not knowingly accept donations in these dubious circumstances was in fact breached because people knew. The president of the time knew.
Yes. Yes, Chairperson.
And is it not correct, and this theme will come up later, that the reason why there was no halting of this particular receipt of donations was that, in fact, the president was in control of the party, the then president.
Yes, certainly. The president plays a very key role in the life of the party. He leads, or she leads the party, and provides leadership and gives direction. That is so.
Now, we've been accused in the media, Mr. President, of having kid gloves on. They certainly won't remain on today. And perhaps it's important for the public to understand, Chair, this is a commission of inquiry. It's not a trial. We are not here to panel beat the answers in accordance with any particular view. This is an opportunity for you, Mr. President, to say, and you've said, what you think, good or bad, whatever the public might think about it. This is your opportunity to say it. Nevertheless, there are certain things that we do have to raise, which we will raise today. And the one is the CR17 donation from Bosasa operations into the F&B account. Now, this has been dealt with by you. I gave you forewarning of yesterday. This is an opportunity to explain to the public and the Commission what happened.
Well, there are two aspects to this. The one aspect is the donation that was solicited by one of my colleagues into the funds of the CR17 campaign. Now, the campaign managers had taken a conscious decision that they would not involve me at all in the fundraising process. They had also taken a conscious decision to say they would not want me to even know who would give money to the campaign, because they wanted almost to create a wall that those people who gave money should never really think that there is anything they will get in return. And that if I knew, there could be that compromise. So they took a conscious decision, and they told me that this is what we have decided. You are the candidate, we are the campaign managers, and we're building a wall, and we are going to make sure you don't know where the money will come from. We will, however, as time went on, we will, however, want money from you. They solicited money directly from me, which I gladly gave, and it was put in an account, and I never knew. Up till today, I don't know how those funds have been managed. I did meet some of the people who gave money at dinners or whatever to explain precisely what we were seeking to achieve by my candidature, and that's where it ended. So when one of my colleagues then approached, I think, one of the Watson brothers, whom he knew from long ago, because he was a comrade before he passed away, comrade in ANC structures, UDF structures, and all that, to give money. He seems to have said, I want you to give money personally, from your own money, and not, it seems like he made that distinction, from your own purse and not from the company itself. So that is what I believe he seems to have done. So of course, as the story, was made public, it seemed like it came from Bosasa. I don't quite remember the finer detail. I think it came from him or one of his companies or accounts. And I think the public protector and the legal processes looked into all that. So that is the one aspect that had to do with monies, that had to do with anything Bosasa related, even though I think the money never really came from there. So I was far away from the finances that financed the CR17 campaign for the reasons that I've articulated, that the managers did not want me to know, so that I should never be beholden to any of the people who gave money to the campaign. And as it turned out, we had maybe by osmosis in the ANC arrived at a situation where there are formal campaigns that are now mounted for people to be elected to positions. It never used to be like that in the past. And we still bemoan the fact that we have now arrived at a campaign-style type of contestation for leadership, which is regrettable, but that's where we are. And I'll remark on this in a little while. The other part was how the campaign managers then went ahead to raise money for the campaign. It's been said that R1 billion was raised. It was never R1 billion. I'm told that the money that was raised was some 300 million or so, but never R1 billion. But I don't know the full facts because they've literally decided to keep it away from me. And the money, what was it used for? There's a legend that goes around that the money was used to buy votes, and far from it. And I said to my comrades right at the beginning, I never want to be part of a campaign that is going to descend into all these deviant type of behaviors that we talk about in the ANC about vote buying. And I even said I would rather lose the race rather than have votes bought. So what was the money used for? It was used to transport people, to hire venues, and actually I got really surprised that it has become so expensive to have all these things like meetings, busing people, feeding people, the paraphernalia, T-shirts, caps, and so forth that have to be given out for the campaign. And I think people who have run campaigns will know that, yes, there is a cost to all that. As it turns out, there is still a debt that still has to be paid in a number of forms and ways after that campaign that happened in 2017. So money was used for that. And I guess one of the key issues and challenges is that the people who were running the campaign were so methodical. They recorded everything in black and white. They recorded who was given money, what was it for, and some of the money was deposited into people's account to pass on to others, to people in the regions and people all over. And most of that money was then distributed for a branch to hold a meeting, to hire the venue, for people to travel, for airtime, and all those types of things. So when it came to, people often talk about these accounts that are locked up or where the court decided. And that had nothing to do with me because I've been blocked from all that. And the comrades who ran the campaign have been quite almost Philistine in ensuring that that is held to themselves, and I never get involved in all that. But be that as it may, that is now being deliberated by the courts, And in some ways, quite a bit of the information about who gave money is known. It's those who've taken the matter to court know who gave the money. And the money that was given was also donated by a number of people. And many people, as they give money in the old dispensation before the new law about political funding takes place, they gave money on the understanding that we don't want it to be publicized that we've given money for a political campaign. So they wanted their own identity to be kept out of the media. And it was on that type of condition which the campaign managers agreed to. They said, okay, of course you're giving money, and we will keep your information confidential to ourselves, as it has always been the case with a number of monies that are given to political parties. Political parties, by their very nature, go around asking for donations, and I think it will not be surprising for them to hear that other donors don't want the information to be known. So this is now the subject of a major court battle. But in the end, Chairperson, there was nothing sinister, I must say, about the CR17 campaign, nothing underhand. People always say and fear that those who gave money wanted something in return. I would never allow that. And I would also say, and because I don't know, that to me is a safeguard. You know how much so-and-so gave and all that, because they kept it away from me. I should say, so that I should never be seen to be economic with the truth. Some of the people who gave money, I got to know, because some of them would tell me that I have given money, and how much they've given, I don't know. So I should never be heard to be saying I don't know all. Some of them I know, but I would say the majority I don't know till today. And I've sought sometimes to ask, they say, no, we agreed at the beginning of the campaign that we are not going to tell you, and we are sticking to that. And there are like 3 or 4 people who are the key principals of this. They are like the able-bodied people who refuse to even come out with the information. So that is how CR17 went. And beyond that, there were lots of court cases. The public protector got involved because, I should explain this, when some of the money was given, particularly by Mr. Watson, it went from one account to another, and that was his own arrangement. Having been asked by one of my colleagues to give money, and even that colleague never told me, by the way, that he asked for money from Watson. And he moved the money from one account to the other, and it sounded then to the public protector that that was money laundering, and there was no such money laundering, rather. And that is what I can say about the CR17 campaign saga, if I can call it that. And then there have been calls by other people to say, well, we should also look at other campaigns. Let's look at other campaigns. And I've often said, comrades, it's enough to look at the CR17 only. It is enough. Let's put this behind us. I said that because soon after this whole story broke out, I went to the NEC and I said to the NEC, I'd like us as the ANC now to start regulating how internal leadership contests are managed in the ANC, because we don't have such rules. I should hasten to add that in 2012, after I think the Polokwane conference, an attempt was made to regulate this, and there was
the Mangaung conference or the Polokwane conference?
I think it could have been
2012.
2012.
2012 was Mangaung, I think.
It was Mangaung, yes, yes. Gee, Deputy Chief Justice, you know so much. It was at the Mangaung conference where a constitutional provision was drafted, and the NEC was instructed in one way or another to finalize this, and that constitutional provision never saw its way into the Constitution. Until today, we don't know how it happened, why it happened. And some journalists have written about it. And that provision was going to be saying, we need to regulate how these contests are run and funded. And it basically said there should be no fundraising, there should be no this and that and that. So that was never regulated. And that is why these campaigns, and almost on their own, there were 7 campaigns for leadership for president leading up to NASREC, or to the 54th conference. And they were all somehow funded. They were all somehow managed in one way or another, which in a way, shows that a new era has arrived in the ANC, but it needs to be regulated. So I was the first to go to the NEC and said, in the light of what we've been through, and in the light of what I personally have been through, it is important that we should regulate the running of these campaigns. We should regulate the funding thereof, the management of the campaigns, how much money should be given, if any, and there should be accountability. After each campaign, there should be full accountability of money that was given, what it was used for, where it came from, and so forth. So this issue, Mr. Pretorius, that you also clasped together with political party funding, originates largely from the ANC. The first issue about political party funding was first discussed in the ANC was it 2012 or even earlier? I think it was in Polokwane, which would have been the earlier conference of the 50th conference, or 51st conference. We discussed it then and said we need to regulate party political funding. The law that we now have originated from discussions in the ANC. And similarly, this provision that I'm calling for to regulate political party funding for internal contests is something that we will discuss and come to a more sensible conclusion around it, so that we never have any doubt that conferences were bought, as there has been a doubt about my election, that my election was bought, which is absolutely untrue, completely devoid of any truth whatsoever. And I'm prepared to lay out everything.